When the sun sets over Appalachia, the stories begin. You're listening to True Appalachian Nightmare. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Before we start, please subscribe.
I told everyone I was heading out to camp because I needed a break. That part was true enough. I just didn't bother explaining what I was really running from. I needed space, real space. The kind you don't get in apartments or conversations or sleepless nights staring at your phone. I needed somewhere so vast and ancient that my problems would lose their sharp edges just by being there. That's why I chose the Appalachians. Those mountains always felt older than worry itself. Rounded by time, scarred but still standing. I'd walked their safer paths before, following painted blazes, pitching tents in spots chosen for me long before I arrived. This trip was different. I wanted quiet without instructions. I left my car at a small gravel turnout just after sunrise. The air was damp and cool, clinging to my skin as I adjusted my pack. The forest smelled alive, wet soil, rotting leaves, something green and sharp underneath it all. Wind slid through the canopy in a low murmur that felt almost rhythmic, like the land was breathing on its own. The plan was simple: hike in a few miles, find water, stay a night or two, then turn around. I'd packed carefully: map, compass, food, light, blade. I wasn't careless. That matters. As the morning wore on, the trail thinned until it barely deserved the name. Leaves hid the ground, and the trees grew closer, taller, their trunks lined with deep grooves and old scars. I checked my map more than once, matching ridges and slopes to what I could see. Everything lined up, still. I knew how easily direction could slip away out here. When I heard running water somewhere off to my left, I decided to cut toward it. Before leaving what remained of the path, I started marking trees. Nothing extreme, just small cuts in the bark, always at eye level, always on the same side as I moved forward. A trick I'd picked up somewhere. They were temporary, just enough to get me back. Seeing those marks behind me was comforting. Proof I hadn't vanished into the trees without a way home. The creek was narrow and clear, cold enough to sting my hands. I filtered water, ate, let my shoulders loosen. Birds flitted nearby, and something heavier moved farther off, likely a deer. The forest felt busy, but not threatening. I followed the creek uphill, carving a few more markers as the land rolled gently beneath my boots. Sunlight broke through the leaves in uneven patches, lighting moss and ferns like they'd been staged. A few times, I thought, I noticed shapes ahead, something not quite right, but each time it collapsed into shadow and wood when I focused. Sometime after midday, I passed a fallen tree half buried in leaf litter. Pale growth covered its surface in looping patterns, oddly balanced, almost intentional. It stopped me cold. The shapes didn't feel random. For a moment, it looked like symbols, writing I couldn't read. I told myself that was stupid and moved on, cutting a mark into a nearby tree before continuing. Still, I glanced back once, memorizing the way the lichen gathered thicker toward one end of the log. When the light began to soften, I decided to turn back. Setting up camp in unfamiliar ground this late felt wrong. Tomorrow would be better. I reversed course and followed my markers. At first, everything checked out. The same trees, the same cuts, even the one where my hand slipped and left a double mark. Then the forest shifted, not visibly, audibly. Sound dulled, as if the woods had exhaled and not breathed back in. My steps felt muted. Wrong. I checked my compass. It pointed where it should. I kept going. That's when I saw the log again. The same fallen trunk, same pale patterns. Too soon. I told myself paths curve, terrain loops. Still, my pulse quickened as I searched for the marked tree nearby. It was there. Unmarked. I pressed my fingers against the bark where the cut should have been. Smooth, untouched. Panic crept in, slow and heavy. I spotted another tree farther on and rushed to it. There was a mark, but it wasn't mine. The cut was deeper, uneven, like it had been gouged with force instead of care. Wrong angle, wrong height, close enough to fool you if you didn't know better. The next tree was worse. Some markings were missing. Others were warped. Too many lines, strange curves, shapes that made my stomach tighten when I tried to follow them. One formed a crude loop. I told myself it had to be someone else. Another hiker, kids, fatigued, messing with my memory. But the forest had been empty all day, and no one else would have known how I marked my way. I moved faster, no longer trusting the signs, just pushing in the direction I thought would lead me back to water, back to my car. The woods darkened, shadows pooled low and stretched thin fingers across the ground. That's when I heard it, a scraping sound, soft, repeating, like something hard dragged slowly across bark. It came from ahead. I stopped. So did the sound. I stood there, counting breaths, waiting for anything else. Nothing. That I stepped forward. The scraping resumed. Closer. I ran. Branches tore at me as I crashed through undergrowth, packs slamming into my back. I didn't care where I was going, only that I was getting away. My foot caught on a root, and I went down hard. Air ripped from my lungs. When I pushed myself up, I was inches from a tree. There was a fresh cut in the bark. Mine. Same angle, same height. My blood went cold. Below it was another carving, deeper, deliberate, tilted away from my mark, pointing somewhere I hadn't gone. I checked the next tree, and the next. Each one nudged the path slightly, bending it, leading it. That's when I understood. I hadn't been finding my way back. I'd been guided farther in. Something shifted among the trees, low, unhurried, certain I'd keep following. My brother went into the Appalachian mountains. Whatever followed him home isn't human. People who grow up near the Appalachians learn something early. You don't challenge the mountains. You don't wander where you're not invited. And you never assume that what comes back is what left. My brother never learned that lesson. He loved the woods in a way that scared me. As a kid, he'd disappear into the tree line behind our parents' house and stay gone for hours. No phone, no plan, just him and whatever lived between the roots and the rocks. He used to say the forest felt older than fear, like it remembered things people forgot. I laughed it off back then. I wish I hadn't. Last year, his life unraveled fast. Girlfriend gone, job gone, apartment gone, all within weeks. He came home carrying less than he left, with hand looking like someone had scraped him hollow from the inside. He barely ate, barely slept. Sometimes I'd catch him staring out the window at night, like he was listening for something far away. One night, I found him in the kitchen at nearly 3 a.m, picking cold pizza apart with his fingers. He looked thin, not just skinny, emptied. I told him he should get back outside, hike again, camp, let the woods work, whatever strange magic they always had on him. I don't know if he was listening. He took one slow bite, squeezed my hand, whispered that he loved me, and went back to his room. The next morning, he told us he was hiking the Appalachian Trail. Mom panicked. Dad didn't. Dad said my brother knew the land. Eagle Scout, survival courses, years of experience. People walked that trail every year. If it was dangerous, Dad said, it wouldn't be legendary. I remember how my brother smiled at that, not happy, like he'd been waiting for permission. 2 weeks later, he flew to Georgia. The night before he left, Mom hovered like she could stitch him to the house with worry. He hugged her longer than usual, promised to check in, promised to be careful. When he reached the trailhead, he sent a photo. Mountains layered in blue and purple, stretching too far to count. Trees swallowing the horizon. His crooked half smile looked forced. Made it, he wrote. Signals bad. Love you. At first he kept his word. Photos every day. Streams, fog, old shelters. Sometimes his face, always with the same caption. Still breathing. Then the gaps started. A day, then 3, then 5. Dad blamed reception. I wanted to believe him. 6 weeks in, 2 full weeks passed with nothing. No texts, no photos, no calls. We contacted authorities. They weren't concerned. My brother went off-grid intentionally. Search and rescue costs money. Resources are limited. They'd notify ridge runners. If they saw him, they'd tell him to call home. That night, a message arrived. A photo of a sunset, but something about it made my stomach twist. The colors were wrong. Too dark. Like the light was bleeding out instead of fading. Everything's fine, he wrote. That became the pattern. Long silence, panic. Then, a vague photo. No detail, no landmarks, no warmth. While scrolling through his photos one night, I noticed something. In every image from the early part of the trip, there was a shape in the background. A dark blur, half hidden behind trees or rocks. It didn't move between photos, it shifted, like it knew when it was being watched. After that first message following the police report, the shape was gone. My brother came home without warning. Late evening, a single, heavy knock. Dad opened the door and froze. My brother stood there, but wrong hair matted, beard uneven, lips split and bleeding. His gums were dark, caked with something that looked like dried blood. He'd lost so much weight, his clothes hung off him like borrowed skin. His boots were worn through, soles flapping open, and the smell, not sweat, not dirt. Death. Mom rushed him. He said her name once, then collapsed. We cleaned him up, fed him, put him to bed. I told myself, trauma changes people, but trauma doesn't change the way someone stands. The next morning, he ate like he hadn't eaten in months. No pauses, no chewing, just shoveling food into his mouth until his plate was empty, then grabbing more. Bread, eggs, bacon, everything. When I asked about the trail, he grunted, avoided my eyes. It took a week before he spoke normally again, and, even then, something was layered beneath his voice, like another tone trying to crawl out between his words. He walked stiffly, knees locked, refused doctors, refused questions, and the smell never left. Then came the night I stopped pretending I couldn't sleep. That heavy, animal dread sat in my chest. Sometime after midnight, I heard the back door creak open. I followed the sound to the kitchen window. He was outside, on all fours, twitching violently, muscles spasming like they didn't belong to him. His head snapped downward, out of sight. I thought he was having a seizure until I stepped closer. He was feeding. A cat lay beneath him, dead for at least a day, bloated eyes clouded. He tore into it with his teeth, blood streaking his face. He reached inside the body, pulled out flesh, swallowed it whole. Then he crushed the skull with his thumb and swallowed an eye. That's when I ran, locked myself inside. The smell led me to his room. Under his blankets were bodies, small ones, rabbits, squirrels, mice, too many to count. Behind me, glass creaked. He stood at the window, covered in blood, watching me, his head tilted far past human limits, bones pressed against skin. He slammed into the glass and smiled with a mouth that didn't quite fit his face. My parents woke to my screams. By the time Dad ran outside, my brother was gone. Police said breakdown, parasites, trauma, but locals know better. There are stories in Appalachia about things that walk like men when they're hungry, about haints that wear skin thin, about voices that follow hikers who wander too deep. My brother didn't come back from the mountains. Something else learned where we live. And sometimes, late at night, I swear I hear it outside, walking on two legs. Then for
the rules of the holler. People think Appalachia is quiet. It isn't. It's just patient. I was born in West Virginia, but when I was 11, my dad moved us to eastern Kentucky deep into the foothills where the mountains press in close and the roads seem unsure of themselves. We lived in a holler, if you've never seen one. Imagine land folded inward, hills rising on all sides, sound trapped, light swallowed early. Our trailer sat in the middle like something set down and forgotten. Family lived on either side of us. Behind us woods. Across the road woods. No one built there. My grandmother ran the house. The first thing she gave me wasn't a hug or a warning. It was rules. Some were ordinary. Don't wander alone. Leave the wildlife alone. Then there were the others. Don't whistle outside, especially at night. If you hear your name called, don't answer. If you see someone in the woods you recognize, no, you didn't. Come straight home. She didn't explain. She never did. That summer, my dad cleared a narrow trail beside the trailer, cutting through tall grass and blackberry thorns until it opened into a small clearing. We camped there sometimes close enough that my grandmother could see our fire glow through the trees. One August night, we pitched the tent and lit a fire. The woods were loud crickets, screaming frogs down by the creek, wind brushing leaves together like whispered conversations. Eventually, my dad headed back to the house for beer and to check on my grandmother. He told me not to touch the fire. I sat alone, watching flames twist. That's when the woods went silent, not gradually, instantly. No bugs, no frogs, no wind. Even the creek sounded distant, like someone turned it down. My stomach tightened. Then the taste hit. Me sharp, metallic, like I'd bitten down on a battery. It coated the back of my throat, strong enough to make me gag. Moments later, my dad came running back, angry. He said he could smell burning metal halfway down the trail. Accused me of throwing cans into the fire. I hadn't. The fire was clean. He stared at it too long, then muttered something about a storm rolling in. We packed up fast. Lightning started as we walked back. In dense woods, lightning doesn't just flash, it exposes. For a split second, everything is bright as noon. Then darker than before, rain fell lightly. No streetlights. Only the faint glow from our windows ahead, the first. Thunderclap hit. White light. Then darkness. The second strike command. That's when I saw it. Across the yard, over the creek, past the road and ditch. Just beyond the tree line. A shape, gone when the dark returned. The metal taste flooded my mouth again. I froze. Another flash, it was closer, tall. Wrong. Standing. Still like it was waiting for the light. To show it where to be. Darkness again. My legs shook. The next flash showed it standing beside the trees. Its body looked assembled, arms too long, head sitting wrong on its shoulders, like something copying the idea of a person without understanding proportions. I didn't breathe. When the lightning struck again, it stood in the middle of the road. I ran inside. My grandmother was washing dishes. I told her I thought I saw something outside. She didn't ask what. She snapped my dad upright, told him to lock every door and window. He obeyed without question. I slept in her bed that night. The next morning, the tent was destroyed. Not shredded, pulled apart. Seemed stretched until they failed. Up the road, my uncle's chicken coop was empty. All 8 birds dead. Heads gone. No blood. For weeks, no child waited alone for the bus. Adults walked us everywhere. No explanations were given. Years later, when I told this story out loud, my aunt snapped at me furious. "Don't you say that name," she said. "Don't you put that thing on them?" That was when I learned something important. The silence wasn't disbelief. It was survival. Because in Appalachia, rules aren't traditions, they're treaties. And once something knows you've seen it, it starts listening for you.